Hey everyone, welcome to Rainbow Soulstrology. I'm Bright Hawk, and together with Hollis Taylor, we bring you weekly astrology that's accessible, inclusive, and totally down to earth. Hollis is a seasoned astrologer and psychic medium. I'm a musician, artist, and storyteller who loves making the cosmos relatable. We're both passionate teachers who love answering your questions and helping you navigate life through the stars. Each week we start with a guided meditation to tune in to the planetary energies. Then we dive into the week's cosmic forecast, offer horoscopes for every sign, and always make time for your live questions. Whether you're brand new to astrology or you've been following the stars for years, we create a welcoming space where everyone belongs. Our different perspectives and styles come together to give you a well-rounded cosmic experience. Welcome to Rainbow Soulstrology. Let's get centered, tune in, and explore what the universe has in store for us this week.
Hello.
Hi there.
Welcome. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in to Rainbow Soul Astrology Forecast. I'm Hollis, and this is Bright Hawk, and we're here. We're excited to get back to doing our astrology forecasts, and we are excited. We are excited to be able to bring this to you this week. I know that has been some intense times, but we have made it through. We have come through the other end, and here we are celebrating our blessings. I hope you had a great week. This past week has been full of blessings, full of healing, full of recognizing self care and things like that. So I hope you've been working on your own self care and taking care of yourself during this holiday season. I hope you had a great and beautiful solstice and a beautiful holiday, whatever you might celebrate. And we are ready to do this week's forecast. So let's get Bright Hawk up here to play her hand pan. I'm sure you guys are excited.
Welcome back to the last podcast for 2025. This week we're talking about December 29th to Sunday, January 4th. And it's always really good to just start with breathing together and a little meditation and a little centering and
We'll take this moment to get comfortable in your seat. To get comfortable in your body. Just take a couple deep breaths and just let any tension you might be holding just drop back. Let it fall off your shoulders. Take a deep breath and just let it all go. And imagine yourself warm and cozy, bundled up on a cold winter night. Outside, but you're plenty comfortable in your warm jacket. And you can feel the crispness in the air. And as you stare up at the sky, there is a beautiful full moon. Glowing beautifully bright down on you. And as you take that deep breath, staring and smiling up at this beautiful moon, you recognize the glow of the Cancer crab within the center of the moon. Recognizing that this is a Cancer full moon. Bringing through change and transformation, a fullness in emotion, bringing up your own emotions. Feeling your fullness in the moment. Cancer bringing through those deep hidden emotions. And as you take a deep breath, you are able to release them. Release those hidden emotions. Allow yourself to shed and to move past those emotions and come into the fullness of family, of love, coming into the presence of your center. And with one more deep breath, becoming aware and present with your emotional well-being in the here and now. Breathe into your body, wiggle your toes, and come back to your presence, to your body, and to this here and now. Thank you so much, Brighthawk. Thank you so much for that. And now you can adjust your sound settings back to the way they were before. And I hope that all of you are with us this week and that there's been some gentleness in this last week over the holiday and you've been able to tap into your healing. That's really what the last week has come into. And I think we're going to be continuing that this week as Chiron goes direct, which I feel is a really good thing. It could be really helpful for a lot of us as far as healing goes, of finding our healing or finding our way through healing. Um, I feel that this is going to be a good week, especially starting off the week. I noticed that there is it's a grand trine with the moon there in Taurus and the sun and the south node, and Venus there as well. The sun and Venus are conjunct and we'll be traveling together most of this week. And I feel that that really brings a blessing to love and relationships and possibly even money, depending on where Capricorn is in your chart. And with the Sun and Venus together, it could be bringing some great blessings for you. And in a grand trine, Monday's a good day. Monday's a great day. I really feel like there's some blessings, probably in relation to at least a grounding energy, maybe feeling grounded. It probably could feel like back to life, like you're almost kind of happy that the holiday is over in a way, like back to my routine or feeling grounded in the routine or feeling comforted by it in some way, with all those earth with a grand trine in earth. I feel like there could be some comfort in returning to the routine that could be really good. And then, of course, there is a void of course moon I see there, Bright Hawk.
Yeah. The void of course moon, of course, is the that's the name of it. Void of course. I didn't come up with it. That's what it's called. It's that moment between when the moon is switching signs, which is about every 2.5 days. And sometimes we've seen the void of course moon last all day, and sometimes it's just like 15 minutes. When it's less than an hour or two, I don't even mention it because it's so quick, you won't even notice. But when it's substantial, like 10 hours, 2 a.m. to noon, that's substantial enough to say it'll be a chill Monday morning in terms of emotions, which is not bad. It can be very helpful, actually. Some people find it easier to focus when it's during a void of course moon. It's not so chaotic and dramatic and intense because the moon is literally in its weakest or has less energy. I'd rather put it in terms of energy instead of strong or weak, but they are appropriate terms in astrology. And so when the void of course moon is happening, especially if it's happening in a sign that you have a lot of placements in this case, it's a Taurus moon. We're building towards a full moon at the end of the week. And the moon in this case is in a grand trine to the south node, which can be feelings coming up about the past or past relationships or things that you feel anchored to. And of course, it's also with Capricorn, and Venus and the moon are still conjunct Capricorn. They travel close together a lot. And right now, this is one of those times in particular. And so, yeah, we have a quieter energy to start Monday, which I think will be welcome. And of course, Mercury continues to be in a square to Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. So, communications, you want to be careful to a certain extent because you definitely have Mercury in fire and in its detriment, and Neptune in its and Neptune and Saturn still traveling together at the end of Pisces. So, yeah. Depending on where that is in your chart, it is how it'll express itself.
Yeah, and I think, even as we move into Tuesday and that grand trine sort of falls away, the South Node is still in a trine to Mars, and Mars is in a sextile to the North Node. I feel like this is going to be, taking action towards our destiny, towards exactly where we're supposed to be going, taking action. I feel like there's going to be some good action towards things. So I feel like at this point, the action that's being taken, you're probably on the right track at this point. You're probably been forced onto whatever your destiny is, and you're being pushed in that direction. And with the North Node in Pisces, that's it's very spiritual, it's very spiritual awakening, it's also kind of emotional. Um, but with Mars and a sextile, it could really push you to taking action in relation to that and letting go of whatever you needed to let go of. And also, later on, I think it's actually Wednesday, which I think or Thursday, I guess. But Tuesday and Wednesday are very similar days. Jupiter is in a square to Chiron, and sometimes we feel a planet right before it goes forward or direct. And so Chiron is about to go forward on Thursday. And so, you might have a last bit of healing to do, or last bit of healing to come to terms with, depending on how your own chart is placed and how your own chart is. And, where's your Chiron? Is your Chiron retrograde or is it forward? What sign is it in? Is it in Aries? A lot of people have Chiron in Aries. And Chiron is in a square to Jupiter, which is at 21 degrees Cancer. So they're in a square, and that could speak to emotional healing or belief systems, and particularly home or where you live or how you live, and your belief systems around that. And recognizing, since it's in a square to Chiron, that there could still be some healing to come, and recognizing that you're headed towards healing. So, with it in a square to Chiron at 22 degrees Aries, I would just I would just stay open this week, and I feel like you're headed in the right direction because of Mars movement. And, I feel like we're being pushed in the direction that we're supposed to be going anyway. And, you know, um, when Chiron goes direct, it must be Friday, not Thursday, huh? Yeah, it's Friday. So when Chiron goes direct, which is actually on Friday, um, I feel like that's really gonna bring some healing, some some healing and some peace to some healing maybe we've been working on this week. Maybe you've noticed in this last week, the week of Christmas, if you noticed, maybe you noticed that you were better at nurturing yourself, you were better at paying attention to what you needed, maybe putting your needs out there. Maybe you were able to even recognize some belief systems around that and shift them as needed. But I feel like by the end of the week, you're really going to have all that in place. So these 2 weeks, last week and this week, are really pushing us towards that Chiron direct. And Chiron is, of course, the wounded healer. In case you're not familiar with Chiron, Chiron is the wounded healer asteroid, which speaks to there's a story that I'll just say really quickly about a healer who was healing people, and then the gods were messing around and accidentally shot him with an arrow, but he couldn't heal his own wound. And so then Zeus, the main god, made him into a god, which would have turned him into what we call a demigod, which is a god that used to be a human, and turned him into a demigod, and made him an amazing healer as well. uh, although they didn't necessarily directly heal his wound. But that in itself, but the wound of being shot, right, is part of what made him a demigod, right? And so that's kind of the wounded healer in a nutshell, meaning like, there's some sort of wound that you've suffered and it's brought you to this point where you are now in your life for whatever reason. And it has a deeper meaning than you may be aware of. And by the time we get to the end of the week, I think you're going to be aware of exactly, and maybe it might take you the weekend, to be aware exactly of that Chiron and how that plays for you and why it's important and why you're here. And I think that that's a big part of this, you know. So I think with Chiron going direct, I feel that that's going to be a huge healing for all of us, or a message or an understanding of ourselves to a big understanding. So I feel like that's like the main highlight, other than the full moon in Cancer. Am I right there, Bright Hawk? That's like the main.
Well, I want to point out on January 1st that Mercury enters Capricorn. So, those of you who are Mercury ruled signs like Gemini and Virgo, we notice a sign the most when it enters and exits. So, Mercury has been in Sagittarius and now it'll be in Capricorn. And of course, Capricorn's ruled by Saturn and is considered much more cool. Of course, Sagittarius is kind of known for its gregarious, fiery, life of the party uh, kind of vibe. And Saturn is not. It's quite the opposite. It's way more stern, disciplined, controlled, the system, uh, the man. So Mercury is entering Capricorn. It's been in a square to Saturn and Aries, will continue to be, and that's a difficult conversation. Squares usually, the good thing about squares is that they force us to take action, but they force us. They pressure us into, is it going to be this or that? Is it going to be, what are you going to decide? What are you going to do? So, of course, people have had a lot of experience this year in 2025 of having their illusions. Saturn and Aries have been traveling together. So, illusions around the system, the government, democracy, what does it mean to be an American? All of that has pretty well been shattered this year, I would say. And when it goes into Aries, it's going to be a new dawning, right? Zero Aries will be the dawning moment, right? Big change of energy. So whenever the planets change signs, that's a big deal. And Mercury, of course, moves pretty darn quick. So it changes signs pretty quickly. And I think, well, I don't want to speculate right now. But anyway, that is a part of the January 1st story. And then, of course, January 2nd, drum roll please, we have a full moon. Wow, I guess
Yeah,
it's
so let
February
me.
3rd. I took the exact snapshot of the full moon. There it is, Saturday. It's the 3rd, sorry.
Yeah, so what I would also say is that, Mercury is not in a perfect square. So I don't think that will be terribly difficult. I think New Year's Day will be okay, but Bright Hawk is absolutely right talking about Neptune and Saturn together. They've kind of come apart a little bit, but now Saturn's gaining up to Neptune. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you've been hearing me talk about the Great Reveal, and that's exactly what's happening right now. This is called I call it the Great Reveal, which is set this very long transit for like all of pretty much 2025 and for the beginning of 2026, where Saturn and Neptune are traveling together and they're moving back and forth together and they're doing this whole sort of dance together. Saturn's about to catch up to Neptune and surpass it, but it won't do that until February, January, February. They will both move into Aries, but right now they're in the late degrees of Pisces. So you might want to look at that wherever that is on your chart. If you have Saturn in Pisces, this is your Saturn returns and you are finishing your Saturn returns now. So as Saturn moves out of Pisces, you'll start to notice sort of the end of things. You'll come to a completion of things, you'll complete things, particularly in relation to your Saturn returns, depending on where your Saturn is, like what house it's in and how old you are, whether it's your first Saturn returns or your second. If it's your first, it's going to be more about it's going to be more about who you are and coming into your identity and understanding yourself and maybe your work in the world, maybe getting a career that you actually like or settling into a career that actually works for you or even starting a business or something like that. Now, if it's your second Saturn returns, this is going to be about your legacy and your life going forward from here in your 60s and what that's going to feel like. So I feel like it really depends on where Saturn is in your chart if you're in your Saturn returns. And if you have anything in Pisces, especially in the late degrees Pisces, or you're in a nodal return, this is also a pretty big year for you. And has been a pretty big year for like the last year or so with all of these transits in Pisces, Neptune going back and forth with Saturn, revealing some things about yourself, maybe revealing some things about your understanding about whatever house Pisces rules for you and also revealing things in our government. We have Saturn rules the system and it rules government, politics, and Saturn has been traveling with Neptune. And if you watch like the Epstein files and all this stuff, if you've been watching that, look at it because every time something is released, Neptune went direct, Saturn went direct, they went backwards, they moved signs. Every time we get more information, that's what's happening. Saturn and Neptune are a great reflection of exactly what's happening, assuring us and reassuring us all the time that exactly, and I find it assuring. I find it assuring because I feel like it kind of says to all of us that feel scared and worried about the current administration that what's happening is happening for a reason and that there's a bigger reason for this and that there's a bigger plan and it's not a lot of us can feel like we're going down the wrong road or things are really bad and things like that. We have that language. And instead, with a little bit of some spirituality there, you can understand that while it doesn't look good, it's also happening for a reason, that there's a bigger reason here, there's a bigger plan, and not to dismiss feelings of worry and distress, because definitely I believe that a lot of what's happening now is meant to cause distress so that people start to care again and maybe people engage in politics, particularly Americans, and we start to vote, we start to care, we start to protest, especially with this Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years. I feel like Pluto is full steam ahead in Aquarius, and I feel like that's an important transit. And with this full moon in Cancer, you know, that really speaks. First of all, I'm just going to say that the moon is in its home in Cancer and it's in opposition um, to Venus, which is in Capricorn. Which I never feel like it's not necessarily in its detriment, but I never feel like Venus is particularly comfortable in Capricorn. It can be financially, maybe money wise, but it might feel this full moon might feel a little wild. It might feel a little like like we're torn between two things, or like there's some other thing going on there. So I just want to point that out, that's what's going to be going on Saturday with that full moon in Cancer. There might be some shed of some deeper feelings, some a deeper understanding. I do feel like the moon up against Jupiter and in that mystic rectangle. What did you think about this mystic rectangle when you were looking at it, Bright Hawk?
Well, the first thing I thought was, oh, the moon's at home in a mystic rectangle. How sweet. Like, that should be sweet. Cancers can be very sweet. My father was a Cancer, father of 7 children. Yes. And an amazing provider, really, in a lot of ways. So, uh, the spiritual side of a mystic rectangle. Mystic rectangles, of course, are trines and sextiles, 2 trines and 2 sextiles, which are favorable aspects. They're blessings. Trines tend to be so sweet you don't even notice them. Everything just goes your way and you go, hey, aren't I lucky? um, Sextiles you might have to work a little bit more for. And in this case, I was born with the mystic rectangle. I feel like if there's anything that comes up, lean into the spiritual side of it. We also have a minor trine again with Uranus, uh, 12, 27, and 26. Saturn, Neptune, yeah, that sextile Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and then now you also have 12 degrees is pretty far. I guess that's really more the flame of Vesta, yeah. Or is that Pallas Athena? No.
No, that's
That's
Vesta.
Vesta. Okay. Yeah, so it feels very familiar to me since I was born with the mystic rectangle.
Yeah, so I feel that this mystic rectangle is really going to speak, because the nodes are involved. It's really going to speak to where we're headed. It's really going to speak to letting go and moving forward to where we're headed and where we're going. And with that full moon in Cancer, it's really going to bring that energy of feeling full, of feeling that emotional depth. And because Cancer is actually incredibly emotionally deep, and there's going to be some big emotional depth that comes up through this full moon. And I think that that's really important, especially as we shed who we were. And I think that that's really what we're going to be seeing with that south node and the north node in sextiles and trines to this to the sun and the moon, which of course are part of the full moon. And I feel like that opposition plus with Venus involved there could have a lot to do with like money, relationships. Maybe there's some toxic behaviors or toxic things that need to be shed or need to let go of. Those kinds of things could be happening. You could find other ways to express love, especially I really feel like because Venus is traveling with the sun. I feel like that's really going to bring some stuff up around either money or love, or both. It could absolutely be both. And so, we need to recognize that, and in relationships and understanding our understanding of each other, especially with the moon involved, the moon in Cancer. I wouldn't be surprised if it was family relationships, just because Cancer is pretty family based. Capricorn is also very business based. It's very much about business and work in the world. And with the sextiles and the trines in that mystic rectangle, it tells me that whatever goes down is meant to happen, and it's meant to unfold just the way it is, helping us to understand and to fully comprehend our future and our where we're headed. And I think that that's like the main highlight of this week is Chiron going direct and the full moon. This full moon could be intense for some people. It will really depend if you have anything in the middle degrees of Cancer, Capricorn, you'll definitely notice this. Especially around 12 degrees Cap or 12 degrees Cancer or either side of it. So that's like 9 through like 15 degrees, Cancer, Capricorn. You will definitely feel this. You'll definitely feel the intensity. Just try to recognize the spiritual intention there and try to lean into the spiritual part because that and let go of whatever needs to be let go of. You know there's something supposed to be let go, so just let it go. It will be easier to let go during this full moon in Cancer. It will be easier to move on past that is no longer like sort of no longer a part of who you are. I feel like Sunday's a really quiet day. I looked at this before and I was like, oh, Sunday looks kind of quiet. That's the first thing that occurred to me. It looks kind of quiet and chill. So if you need some rest, quiet down on Sunday. I feel like that's really good. And it doesn't look like there's any major void moons during that time, Bright Hawk. So I feel like the intensity on Saturday, it will need a much needed breath of fresh air, if you will, on Sunday.
Yeah, because by now you have Chiron direct, and we've sort of moved over the hump of Mercury coming into Capricorn. I often describe it as speed bumps. If you're in a van and you're driving along on a road, the people in the front are going to feel the speed bump first, and then the people in the back feel the speed bump second, right? So sometimes that's how it feels, depending on what your placements are, how much the bump. Now we're past all the bumps in the week. It's kind of like, okay, okay. We've had so much intensity. I think everybody's going to be glad for a chill Sunday. And the moon enters Leo, which it likes and shines in. And of course, when the moon's in Leo, it answers to the sun, which it was just in a full moon conversation with. So, um, yeah, I think Sunday's going to be chill compared to the other day, especially the full moon. There's always an intensity to full moons, whether you're it's your sign or not. And for the moon, being home is always a big deal, right? It's a big deal when you get home. We're we're nomads again. So home is a concept right now. Kept here right now, and not so much a physical location. And it's a different vibe. And the crab always moves with its home on its back and adapts to its situation. It sheds many times in its lifetime and is very adaptable. There's times where it has a very hard shell, and there's times where it's very vulnerable, has a very soft shell. You could talk to that more since your grandfather was a crabber.
Yeah, knowing crabs very intimately, um, every time I think of Cancer, I think of that. I have Saturn in Cancer, and my son's a Cancer rising, and definitely there are times that he's more sensitive than other times. Um, it definitely ebbs and flows with the tides, and so if you have a Cancer placement, just be aware that there's probably like a season for things and it kind of comes and goes. My grandfather was a crabber, and there was a season that we would particularly look for crabs that had started to shed their shell. And if the shell was starting to separate off their back, where the back legs are on the back portion of them, not where their eyes are, the opposite side, the shell would start to open there, and he would keep them in these special sort of bin tank type bins in his yard. And as a child, I was able to watch them shed shell and become what many people know as soft shell crabs. And this is in Maryland, in Baltimore Harbor. Um, and he would breed them and then sell those soft shell crabs for much more money, of course, than you would sell regular crabs, um, because they're kind of a delicacy to eat that way. I don't know if you've ever eaten them that way, but you eat the whole shell and everything. Um, and the soft shell crabs are literally a soft shell. That's why they call them that. But the crab, it would take weeks, and the crab would sort of, one day you'd go out there and it would be half gone, and the next morning it would be completely gone. They would kind of step backwards out of it, and it would just kind of come off of them. It would just kind of it would slowly open up from the back, and then they would just kind of step out of it, and the shell would come off and float in the water, and we would be aware that someone lost their shell, and we would try to keep them away from the other crabs because they were so vulnerable. Um, they were so vulnerable. They would get pinched, by the other crabs. So we wanted to keep them safe. So all the soft crabs were together until it was time, to cook them. Um, but they didn't he didn't want them to get hurt. So, you didn't want them to get damaged because you didn't want them to get pinched by someone that still had a hard claw. Sometimes they would accidentally clip each other, which didn't matter if it was a hard shell, right? But it definitely mattered when their shell was soft. And so you could think of this as a time of this full moon, as a time of being that vulnerable soft shell crab. And there might be some moments of vulnerability. So if you have a person with a Cancer placement, or you are a Cancer placement yourself, be aware of that vulnerability within that person, and maybe be a little bit more sensitive to it, and be more, maybe be a little bit more, yeah, just sensitive uh to that part of people, and recognize that cancers are usually very sensitive. The one thing that I notice about people with Cancer placements is it takes them a little while to process things. So if you say something to them, as a Scorpio, I say things sometimes that people have to emotionally process. And then I just know to just drop it and then don't harp on it, and to just go away, and they'll think about it, and they'll usually come to the best conclusion. I think that's the really beautiful thing about cancers, is that uh, they'll usually do some inner reflection and usually come to a good conclusion. They just need to do it on their own schedule, their own ebbs and flows. They ebb and flow with the moon, and the moon is in cycles, and so are the crabs of our world. And so recognize those Cancer people out there. They might be having some vulnerable, they might be feeling particularly vulnerable. It's okay to give them some extra love, and give them some extra support. They're probably going to need it this weekend. So, my friends, and with Chiron going direct, that's a lot of healing. They definitely could be experiencing some healing, some understanding of their own life and the way things are. And I encourage you to support each other and give love to each other in this beautiful time. We all need each other more than we've ever needed each other before in this world. And I think that that's true. Um, you need your family, your friends, your community, however that might look for you, the people in your life. I always say to honor them and love them with just much fullness, and never before have we been in a moment that we needed community and family more than now. So, um, so I got my love cards. I'm gonna shuffle them up.
While Hollis is on mute and shuffling the cards, thank you so much for listening to Rainbow Soulstrology, where we like to start with a meditation, do the forecast, and finish with 3 tarot cards representing the past, the present, and the future. And it never ceases to amaze me how the cards and astrology speak such a thematic language together. And I find the information super helpful and sort of helping us thread the needle, if you will, from the past to the present and the future. So, sounds like Hollis has got them all shuffled up and ready to go.
Yeah, and we also do weekly horoscopes, so you can look for them in the YouTube Shorts or sometimes on Facebook or TikTok. All of the socials are down in the description or in the comments. You can find your horoscope. If you're watching this on Substack, you can also read it in the newsletter on Substack. So if you'd rather read it than listen to it for whatever reason, sometimes it's just easier to just read a horoscope for yourself. Um, you always want to listen to your rising sign and your sun sign. Those are the two most important. You could also listen to your moon sign. I usually integrate that more on an emotional level. Okay. And the cards today are the King of Cups. So let's see if we can get this. No. um, you know, it's just not gonna do it. It's just not. Um, so let me just fix that real quick. And okay. Nope. All right. So, this is the King of Cups, which talks about our history and our past. This is very much about what was in the past. This is very much about the emotions, things on our mind, emotional things that have been on our mind that have been having us contemplate things um, and this is very much about worries, things on your mind. That's really what the King of Cups is. Very much. It's very much about emotional things on your mind, things that have been creating a little bit of emotional. You can see that the skies are a little gray there, but the birds are flying. There are thoughts flying around. Of course, the king is underwater with the bubbles going. And if you look, you can't quite see. Oh, there you go. Now you can see the king is kind of petting a little fish, petting the fish, and trying to recognize all that flows in those waters and being in those waters. And this is really about your past. And then speaking to the now of this week, this is the King of Swords. So this is very much about thoughts and actions and taking action. And this is very much about the rainbow after that. And this is very much about, pushing forward into a higher way of thinking, a higher type of thinking. And with the King of Swords, this is very much about see how it has like a stained glass rainbow around it. That's really about like sort of the rainbow after the sun. And this is about holding steady with thoughts and being strong and holding steady with those thoughts in a good way. This is a very strong cards and strong thoughts and strong way of being. And going to the future. This is the Five of Cups, and you can see here there could be um, some emotional turmoil or some emotional strain. So I just want to say that it could have a lot to do with that Capricorn full moon, and this might be about the emotion of that and just letting that be, letting those emotions spill. But just recognize that even though there might be some spilled emotions, there's also some good stuff in the background. So be aware of that as well. With those 2 cups upwards and with these 3 cups spilled here, while you might notice what has gone wrong, you may be forgetting some things that have gone right. So, like I said, for the past, recognize that those feelings that have been weighing heavy on your mind, worries, thoughts, and things of that nature, recognizing all that flows within and allowing those emotions to flow through you to the best of your ability. And going forward, recognize that those being strong in those thoughts, being strong and taking action in relation to those thoughts as King of Swords. And taking action is really going to bring a rainbow. It's really going to bring a big change to things, bringing forth a big change that's really helpful for all of us. And going forward with the Five of Cups, this is a recognition of while you might feel some emotional hurt or burden, there will also be these two cups upright, which very much speak to what, make sure you recognize what's gone right, not just what's been spilled. What emotions have been spilled, yes, but also what emotions have not been spilled and what is being held upright. And I think that that's important in this moment, in this time, and recognizing that, you know, that we are all sensitive, emotional beings with all that water. It's an emotional week. It's a lot of water. Well, and we were talking about the Cancer full moon. So, my friends, emotional healing this week. Be open to it and be open to new ways.
That's so great, Hollis. What a powerful message. And each card, I was like, oh, so the last one was definitely the full moon. The other one with the rainbow around it felt like the long-term Mars square Saturn Neptune. And the first card, the thinking and the Gemini energy, right? Just very thinking, very much what's on your mind, what's past. Here we go, you know. So fascinating. Love the how you do the tarot, and I hope you all enjoyed Rainbow Soulstrology and this week's forecast of December 29th to January 4th. Um, we will be posting the reels for each of your signs, each of the zodiacs, so make sure you look for that. And of course, we're happy to answer any questions you might have during our live Q&A on Monday evenings. Do you want to say more about that? What time we're going to do it now that we're on the East Coast?
Oh, yeah. This week, we will be doing the Monday night live broadcast. Actually, we will probably still do it, but we'll do it, 5 o'clock Eastern time. So that's looking for that at 5 o'clock Eastern time, which I think before it was at 7 Eastern time. So I'd like to keep it at 5 o'clock our time, because that's what's comfortable for us. And I think that's the best time. So we're gonna do a 5 o'clock our time. And then if you're part of Mystics Academy, there's also a reading practice right after the Q&A. So hopefully you're a member and you'll be catching that. And if you're a member, I hope you sign up to get your New Year's Eve reading, your New Year's reading, anytime between now and January 11th. There's a coupon for Mystics Academy members. Members get 50% off this month because it's New Year's. It's my gift to all of you, 50% off any reading. So if you're a member of Mystics Academy, which is only 1111, you get 50% off. And that's for the beginner's guide, Bright Hawk, but they actually get a special code when they join Mystics Academy. And Mystics Academy, also, if you join as a novice mystic, you also get money off of a coaching package or a reading or both. And you get to attend the reading practice party on Monday night and the New Year's Eve readings party. There's a New Year's Eve readings party where everyone gets to attend and everyone will get at least a small reading. Sarah Red Crow will be with me, hopefully. I'm not 100% sure about that. She might be not doing so well. So we could send some prayers out to her. So I'll bring someone else in as a result. But there will be a New Year's Eve readings party either way, where you get a reading from anyone, from me. I'll be happy to look at your astrology, be happy to answer any questions you might have, or pull a tarot card for you. And we'll be doing that on New Year's Eve. And if you are part of the any level of membership except for the free membership, of course. So if you're a novice or a readings tier or a family member, you will get it. And if you're a family, you also remember that you also get the print out for kids. Okay. Um, all right, my friends, I wish you the best, and I hope you join us over on Mystics Academy and catch us on Zoom in these private events. They're a lot of fun for members only, and I look forward to having you there.
Thank you again for listening to Rainbow Soulstrology, where we try to be a bridge between you and the stars. Have a great week. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks so much for spending time with us this week. We hope you're feeling more connected to the cosmic energies and ready to work with them in your daily life. If you enjoyed today's show, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps us reach more people who could use some cosmic guidance. And don't forget to share this episode with anyone who might need to hear it. We love hearing from you, so drop a comment, let us know what resonated most or what you would like covered next week. Your questions and feedback make our show better. Want to join us live? Subscribe! And catch us on Facebook and YouTube, where you can ask questions in real time and be part of our cosmic community as it happens. Until next week, trust your intuition, follow your inner wisdom, and remember, the stars are always supporting your journey. Thanks for listening to Rainbow Soulstrology, where we try to be a bridge between you and the stars.